How to use the transform tools. The video series has the workspace set to Essentials Classic. The files I use in the demos are available in the Show More section below this video.
Now we're going to look at working basic transformations. So I'll start by zooming in, and we're going to begin with the rotate. Let me move my layers out of the way here a little bit. I'm going to lock a couple of the layers here and make sure I select the work layer. This is the one that I'm going to work on. Okay, so often people just use the selection tool, okay, the black arrow, and you can select an object, and placing the cursor on one of the outer corners you can click and hold and drag your object. Command Z will get us back to our start point. You can click on a corner and you can scale your object. Holding the Shift key will, of course, constrain the scale. And if you also hold the Option key, so the Shift and the Option, you'll scale from the center out. Okay, either proportionally or release the Shift key and scale out freeform. Okay, so Command Z to undo. Alright, so again, outer corner, you can rotate. But often you want more control over your rotation. Okay, so Command Z to undo this. In this case, we'll go over to our tool set for rotate and reflect. And I'm going to select rotate. Okay? If you double click on the rotate tool right in the tool palette, you'll get your window and you can set the angle and you can set the preview. So maybe I want to move this 45 degrees. Okay? Just toggle preview on and off and you can see the change. Alright, I'll set this back to 0. Toggle on and off the preview. Alright? So click on the rotate tool in the tool palette. You can set a very specific angle of rotation. Alright, so I'll cancel this. Also, you'll notice that as soon as you select the rotate tool, okay, our object was selected. Let me zoom in on this a little bit so it's a little easier to see. Initially, we get our anchor point here. Okay, this is the point of rotation. So the first click sets the point of rotation. So if I wanted to rotate from this point up here, I click, this sets the anchor of rotation. Now the cursor will change to just the black arrow here. The next click, so I'm going to click and hold and drag my object. Okay, so the rotation is set with the first click. When I release, notice that the cursor goes back to the crosshair. So if I click and change the rotation point, then click, hold and drag, our object rotates around the point we set. Okay, so click, set a rotation point, click and drag, rotate the object. Alright? Rotation tool. Alright, we also have a lot of control over scaling our object. Now, of course, we could use the black arrow and scale an object. Okay? But let's use the actual scale tool. So Command Z to undo this. I'm going to zoom in to my object a little bit. I have the object selected. Then we go over to our tools, and right underneath the rotate tool we have the scale tool, and this is also part of a tool set. Okay, but we're going to stay with the scale tool. Now, when you first select the tool, you'll get an anchor point, and the anchor point is the position that the scale will emanate from. So if I click over here, we get our anchor point, origin point, and the next click and drag begins the scale. If you hold the Shift key, you'll constrain proportionally. Okay? So you click, this is the point of the scale where the scale will emanate from. Then click, hold, and drag, and you see how the object scales. Hold the Shift key to see different proportion changes. Okay, drag up, drag at a diagonal, drag horizontally. Okay, so you can see different scale changes. Okay, Command Z a couple times to get back. You can also double click on the scale tool and you can set uniform or non-uniform changes. Just change the numbers, toggle preview on and off to see the change. You also can scale strokes and effects. Okay, so I'll leave the scale, stroke, and effect on for a moment and click OK. Now to see what happens, let's go ahead and go over to our tool set here and click on the arrow to swap, fill, and stroke. Okay, we see that we have a 1-point stroke. So again, double click on your scale tool. We're going to scale the stroke and effects. Click OK. I'll just set my origin point right here, and now click and drag. Alright, and you'll see that the stroke changes, and we can verify that right up here, 1.572, and we started out with 1. Okay, so if we go back, double click, let's cancel this here. Okay, I'll just get the black arrow, click on this, double click on my stroke, okay, and remove scale and stroke, and let's just set this back to 100%, so we'll click OK. Alright, now get the scale tool. I'll just click a point right here, and now we'll drag this smaller. But you see the stroke stays the same size. So sometimes you want to scale a stroke, sometimes you don't. It really depends on what you're trying to accomplish. But just know you can change the scale of the stroke and even effects when you scale objects. Sometimes you need to mirror an object, and you can use the reflect tool to quickly create a mirror image. So let's zoom in on our object, and with our selection tool we'll select our object, and we'll go over to the reflect tool, which is part of the rotate tool set. Okay, so rotate and reflect. So I'll select reflect, and you'll notice, like other transformers, you have your original orientation point. So the first click will set the orientation point for the reflection. So if I wanted to reflect from this side, I would click orientation point. The next click will enact the reflection. So click, hold, and just drag left or right. Holding the Shift key will help constrain. So I'll just drag to the left, and you'll see that we get a perfect mirror image. So again, the first click sets the point, or the point which the reflection will take place. The next click will start the reflection. So again, holding the Shift key sometimes helps. So I'll drag right this time, and there's the reflection. Like other transformers, if you double click on the tool, go over to the tools, double click on the transform tool for reflect, and you'll see the various options that you can set. Okay, axis, angle, and the different options. Alright, so remember, double clicking on a tool will often bring up options. Okay, so experiment, take a look around at the different tools. So I'll just cancel. Alright, using the reflect tool to create a mirror image. The shear tool is helpful when you need to slant an object, sometimes at a specified angle. So let's go ahead and select our object, and we'll go over and we will get the shear tool. And the shear tool is associated with the scale tool. All right, so let's select Shear, and like the other transformers, you get your point of origin for the transformation. So the first click sets the transformation point. The next click starts the transformation. If you hold the Shift key, then you'll be able to constrain the movement, okay, the amount of slant or shear. Okay, so once again, that's Command Z. If I click right here, the first click sets the orientation, the next click and drag sets the shear. All right, you can also double click on the tool and you can set your options for the shear. Okay, maybe you want to be very specific on the angle, or it's horizontal or vertical axis, or there's a degree of the shear angle. You can set that here and then click OK. So what if we try 45 on the horizontal? Let's toggle preview. All right. All right, the shear tool for slanting objects, often at a specified angle.
Free Transform Tool. To easily see the Free Transform tool in the tool palette, the workspace must be set to Essentials Classic. Otherwise, you will need to select the Edit Toolbar icon at the bottom of the tool palette and scroll to the bottom to find the Transform tool.
The Free Transform tool, which is located about midway down your tool palette, allows you to free transform the rotation, scale, reflection, the ability to shear, or even apply perspective. Okay, so let's select our object and we'll zoom in a little bit. And notice that different combinations of Shift, Command, and Alt, or the Option key, will invoke different transformations. So let's get our tool, and you'll notice if you double click on this tool, there are no options. Okay, there's not an option panel. Okay, so not all of the tools have options. Okay, you need to experiment to find which ones do. Okay, all right, so we can scale. Typical scale changes. Holding the Shift key would constrain the scale. Command Z. You can obviously rotate. Okay, very similar to just using the selection tool, but there are some differences. So if we select this corner and let's hold the Shift key and the Option key and the Command key, and I'm going to drag left and right. Okay, try dragging down. Okay, so you can see different types of shears or perspective or distortion. Command Z. Let's try here in the center. Okay, now I'll hold Shift, Option, and Command. Okay, so you can see different transformations. All right, and Command Z again. So the Free Transform tool, similar to using the selection tool, but holding Shift, Command, and Alt in different combinations will allow you to scale, rotate, shear, or even apply perspective. All right, Free Transform tool. The Blend tool transforms one object into another by creating a multi-step color and shape progression between the two objects. So as example, let's get our Move tool here, our selection tool, and I'll just move these two shapes down here so we have a little bit more room. And then I'll go over and find the Blend tool. Okay, here it is. I'll select the Blend tool. And remember, double-clicking on tools often bring up options. Not all of the tools have options, so you need to experiment. Okay, and you see that we can smooth color, specify steps, specified distance. I'll do steps. And let's go with the default 8. Click OK. Now simply place the cursor over one object, click, go to another object, and click. and you can see the change in shape over, in this case, 8 interim steps. So let's Command Z, and what we'll do is select our circle and make sure we're on Fill up here in our colors, and I'll select a color. Now go back to the Blend tool, and specified steps, we'll do Smooth Color. Click OK. Again, click on one object with the tool, then on another object, and we just have a color step between the two. Alright, so Command Z to undo this. I'm going to delete the circle and click on the square and copy and paste. So let's go ahead and copy and then paste, and I'll just bring this square right over here. Let's go back over to our Blend tool, double click. This time we'll do specified steps. You can also do distance, but we'll do specified steps, and let's again go with 8. Now the orientation, okay, align to the page or align to the path. So notice the two pictures here. The objects stay in relationship to one another, or you can actually have them follow the curvature of a path. So let's align to path, and then click OK. Click on one object, click on the next object. Let's go and get our tool set for the pen. So let's get the tear off, bring this over here, get the Convert tool, and I'm going to click on this end anchor point and drag out a path. And then use the white arrow to adjust the path. Okay? And if I want to adjust the spacing here, let's go and get our Convert tool and also click on this side. Okay? And then we'll move this back over. Get the white arrow, direct select, modify your handles. Now you'll notice that the shape follows the curvature of the path, as opposed to all of the squares staying vertical. Okay? As example, let's back up, Command Z. Alright, double click on the Blend tool. This time the orientation will be our first option here, align to page. We'll keep the same specified steps. Click OK. Click on an object, click on the second object. Get the Convert tool. Let's add a point. We'll go to this side and we'll add our point. Then you'll see that all your squares keep the same orientation to the page. They no longer follow the path. Alright, so the Blend tool.